Welcome to the Progressing Lives Everywhere podcast, brought to you by the Amoria Bond Group. In each episode, we feature prominent business leaders and industry experts sharing their personal experiences and inspiring anecdotes of what progression means to them and insights into their specialist fields, as well as tools, techniques, and practical steps we can all take to progress lives everywhere.
Lee, welcome to the Progressing Lives Everywhere podcast. We got there in the end. Had a few technical issues, but we're good to go. How are you?
I'm really good, mate. Really good.
Good. So I'm Andy Barrow from Amoria Bond, for those that don't know, and we'll be recording a series of short chats over the coming weeks where we focus on mindset, hacks, motivation, concentration goals with people from very different walks of life, but certainly a common thread that these people will be speaking to, including yourself, Lee. There's a massive level of positivity, optimism, adaptability. Too much for me to say, but Lee's got this in abundance, from whether it was a top level headhunter and consultant, fine all round sportsman, eventually circling his way back around about 10 years ago, I think, Lee, back to your main passion of running, which is now culminating in being a Team GB athlete and ultra runner, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for being on the call. I know I find you nearly at dinner time in Dubai, so I appreciate this. It's really great. I was going to say it's great to see you. It's really great to talk to you. Obviously, we've had 2 or 3 chats and over the last few days and today, but I realised when I was preparing this, we've known each other on and off for about 18 years, believe it or not. So it's nice to get to spend some time with you and hear more of the story from what I see as from afar.
Yep, that's it, isn't it? You kind of like social media now, you're kind of getting these glimpses of people's lives. So I see what you're up to and that you're having babies and things like that and doing all the adult stuff. But
So yeah, it's a weird world in that respect. But yeah, definitely, I think I've said it to you even through our chats and voice notes and DMs that it's an inspiring story. So I thought, who better to have as the first guest in the new series, really, and learn more about what makes you tick. I mean, that really kicks us off with the first question of how you start your day, your morning habits. How do you tackle the day from the beginning so that you have the best day possible?
yeah, so I suppose nothing has really changed. Like I just grew up with sport, right? So my father's philosophy was you get your sport done, you go to practice, and then if you've got time, you do your homework, and that's how it was, right? And that was my life, like all the way through primary school, high school, and so the kind of lessons you learn through that is the habits, right? And that kind of repeating something eventually kind of leads to well, hopefully excellence, if you've chosen the right path. So, and also teamwork, what you put in, you get out, resilience, learning to fail is a big one. How you deal with it, how you come back with it, etc. So that really didn't change whether I was recruiting or whether I'm now running, professionally. And I was saying this to a mate yesterday people ask me all the time, like, how do I get in shape? What do I eat, etc. And it's like, how do you, I really want to be rich. How do you get rich? Well, everyone wants to be rich, but are you prepared to work 10 years like solid at something in order to kind of be a specialist in it? And so I was just saying, I wake up and before I can even get to the coffee machine, I walk past a bar that's above my door, one of those chin-up bars. And so whilst the coffee's brewing, I'm doing kind of 3 times 10 on doing 3 times 10 on hanging leg raises, looking after my core and my hip flexors and stuff like that. So I'll have the coffee, drink about a litre of water, and then go out for my first run. And it's
A litre before you even left the house.
yeah. So rehydrate, big thing for the muscles, organ, everything. Kind of like drinking lots of water, and just coffee, water, 3 times 10 on hanging leg raises, and then go for the first run. And so that's like 5 days out of 7. That's fasted training. So you're teaching your fat metabolism, or you're teaching your metabolism to optimize like the burning of fat. And using fat as fuel, as a primary fuel source, as opposed to glycogen. So that's just habit. It's just hardwired in me. It's ingrained, but exactly the same in recruitment in a different way. And so whether you're kind of working in an office and you're doing something in business or you're kind of doing professional sport, it doesn't really matter. Like if you start your day with exercise, ideally in sunlight, the science is there to proven that you're thinking and that gets into a habit. It only takes really 30 days to set up a habit. You're setting yourself up for the day. You're better to work with, and all the rest of it that comes with it. Yeah.
Start taking that time for you, or like you say, whether the sunlight, the vitamin D, or I think for some people, right, that clarity of thought comes from training, doesn't it? You feel a little bit calmer, a little bit fresher. Obviously, endorphins, I guess, as well. So, obviously, when we spent time together 15, 20 years ago, I remember going to the gym with you then, and you teaching me things then, and sales as well. I think I used to sit next to you even for a period of time as well on the phone. So I remember some of those things about habits and processes, and that certainly stuck with me. But going from I want to get back into running to running a 100-kilometer race and winning it over a 10-year span is quite a stretch, right? It's quite a dramatic development. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, so from when we worked together back in Manchester, I left Manchester like 15, 16 years ago, and then set up my own company, made all the mistakes you make in setting up your own company, realizing that, recruitment is not just you on your own. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And so making all those mistakes. And then I was working in oil recruitment. So there was a crash in the market like 2008, 2009. Went cycle touring in Asia. And I've had a few of these experiences where you just spend literally weeks and months alone, completely alone in your thoughts. And essentially a 6-week trip to Asia became 12 months on the bike, just cycling around. And with that came the end of 2009. I was going from Bangkok to Singapore on the bike and trying to do it fast to get there in time for New Year's Eve, for a friend's birthday. There was a goal, which was, a big goal, and I ended up falling asleep before New Year's Eve. Actually, before 12 o'clock. But the kind of thing that I got from it was, this is what I love doing. Yeah, I love just getting up in the morning and endurance. I love the simplicity of it and the meritocracy of it. There's nothing subjective about running or cycling. It's the first person to cross the line wins the race. And it's the same in recruitment, right? So if you've done the most deals in a month and that adds to a figure, it's there on top of the board. There's no argument. There's no debate. That's the person, yeah? And so I love that. I love that about it. And so it was literally kind of like 30th, 31st. I was like, as soon as I get back to my place in Thailand, I'm going to start running. And I went for a run maybe the 2nd or 3rd of January 2010. And I went for a run and just said, I'm going out for an hour. I thought all this cycling fitness had turned into running fitness. And so I said to my girlfriend at the time, I'd just be about an hour. I came back after 5 minutes, just dead. Like I probably strained a quad and just
too hard, too fast.
Yeah, they didn't know how to pace it. So all that I'd done as cross country and track and field as a kid, just forgotten all of it, and the cycling fitness hadn't really kind of like, I definitely was aerobically fit, but it's just a different type of fitness. And I remember saying to my girlfriend, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a professional runner. And I was big at the time. I wasn't as big as I was in Manchester, but I was still heavy and
not a runner's build.
Not a runner's build, more of a kind of rugby person's build that I was playing in Barcelona before I left to go cycle touring. And then so from there, it was just this, when the curve is so steep as well, because you can do it. I signed up for Manchester 10K in May, and I had to stop 3 times along the way, but I did a sub 40 minutes. So
still a good pace.
Still okay, but you had no idea what you were doing. And then somebody just taunted me into doing a 50K uphill race in Granada, which eventually became my home because I fell in love with the place. And then all of a sudden you're in something that you're overly optimistic and delusional because that's the kind of personality set you have. And then it's a case of, okay, so really this should be a 10-year journey, like Gladwell's 10,000 hours, right? So how can I condense those 10,000 hours into what should take 20 years, 15, 20 years, into 3 years? So how do you make all those shortcuts and stuff like that? And you quickly
started to plan that and map that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, like, long story short, you realize that I can't be doing a full-time job and doing running at the same time. So I need to save up. So I moved from an apartment I rented a room in an old lady's house, and paying like the minimum for everything, watching my budget on everything, saving as much as possible over a year, and then like essentially funding myself for that first year in 2013. And then
You gave yourself that sort of year to go. Okay, but that's when I'm gonna.
yeah,
I need enough funds for a year at least.
yeah, I need enough funds for a year. And then what you realize is actually your life doesn't cost. When I'm living in Granada and my rent is €200 a month, living basically like a training base camp, my life then doesn't cost what it used to do as a recruitment consultant. So actually, I saved up enough to live for probably 3 years and fund myself. Luckily, sponsors came within like 6 to 9 months. But you'd hear Rogan speak about this on podcasts, and it's kind of like a soundbite now, because he says what you need to do is, most people never do this, but you basically just need to give yourself that window where you can go at something for like 6 to 9 months and really hit it. And that window, like whether you like it or not these days, is a chunk of money to just say bills are paid, no kind of worries, no stress. This is what I'm doing. And if you could do that, like some people would say it's a leap of faith. I think it's the opposite. I think it's more scary to stay.
Okay, yeah. You mean so not you mean the fear of not giving it a try?
The fear of getting to 45 and thinking, what if when I was 27, when everyone's saying I was too old to become a professional runner, what about if I would have just gone, yeah, you're right, probably I'll stay in recruitment. And then, what it's like in recruitment, you can just, as long as you listen, you're going to be earning decent money, because that's the name of the game. It's a numbers game, right? So yeah, and it's very difficult in the society, like we're like in the community we're from back in Manchester, where everything is kind of, you're judged on what you're wearing, what watch you've got, what shoes you've got, what car you're driving, where your apartment is, all the materialistic stuff that you quickly realize in your 30s doesn't mean anything. It's difficult to walk away from that, and a lot of people think you're nuts, and that's fine. You have to be nuts to go for it. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you think it's nuts or fearlessness, or do you think it's just single-mindedness, or do you think it's just super clarity, 200% clarity? I think if you what's the word? Not even necessarily nuts. Pure belief. If you believe it, right? If you're like, no, I want to do this for that reason. It could for some it could be nuts, right? But I guess some of us, they're just no. I think I could do it. Pure belief.
No, absolutely. It's a combination of those things, but your fearlessness, in a way, fearlessness, but also super clarity that you are absolutely 110% back yourself, right? So you have to 110% back yourself. If there's any doubt, don't bother. Like, you have to back yourself, and maybe that comes from your support system, maybe it comes from internal. What I've learned over the years is, judging myself against my competitors, is everything that I do it comes like from intrinsic motivation. So I do it for the love of it. Like, I do it I did recruitment for the love of the game, not like for kind of competition, not for the materialistic get, like not for the money and everything else that comes with it. And if it's intrinsic, your motivation, it will, every day of the week will be somebody who's extrinsically motivated. You saw that during COVID, when competitions are cancelled and postponed. Who's still doing the training? Like, for me, I trained harder than ever before.
Was there a big chunk of people that kind of went by the wayside?
Yeah, it kind of like, you get back to training and things start to open up and races start to open up. And then there's videos on Instagram now and Facebook, and there's athletes training. And it's like, whoa, somebody, you get a comment like, oh, wow, somebody's done his winter preparation. You see, like, when people do the spring training somewhere warm, people and lads have got the tops off, and it's like, oh, somebody's done the winter training. You can see the definition in their abs, right? Because the body fat's low, etc. And I always look at those and think, like, that's your job. And that's like a Roy Keane comment, right? But it's your job to be. If you're a professional athlete and you're not in shape, what are you doing? Like, that's.
When you see those boxers, some of them are always ready to go, and then you see some of them who balloon between fights and stuff. It's that difference of discipline, and sometimes the level of the fighter as well, right? Or the performer.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously we're from a place where we've got like Ricky Hatton, right? So just say somebody too skilled in sports physiology to know that there's a lot more longevity in his career if he would have stayed in shape in between fights.
Yeah, I guess for those that when we're talking for anyone uninitiated, Ricky Hatton was a two-weight world champion from Manchester, but he liked to eat and drink between fights. Not the super disciplined monk that you see some athletes today. Yeah, definitely not right. He would enjoy the trappings of success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, right? So it's the extrinsic motivation that maybe was big for him. And I think Sugar Ray said something special, like it's very difficult to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and hit the gym when you're sleeping in silk sheets, right? It's a great quote. It still counts today. It's like if you were doing it for the money and then the money comes, it's like in recruitment. Everybody I've ever interviewed for a job in recruitment always said, "Oh, money motivated." Yeah, but you've got to test that to what extent. Like, do you want to own a planet? Do you want to own like an island? Is it just your mortgage you want to pay off? Like, of course,
What's that level of ambition and why?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is why kind of running is really no different to your job, really.
But I think there's a lot of parallels in that the running the race, the preparation, the planning, the fitness, the motivation. That if you want to do the best day to day, whether it's sales, consultancy, recruitment, just life, I think there's like you said, there's not necessarily about the winner and loser, but you know what you've put in. It's there, you can see it. I think like the types of runs you do is very, like you say, it's very parallel to life in general, isn't it? It's not like if we do a 5K, we're back in half an hour, back in the house, and you might even not even think about what you've done. You might just listen to a couple of tunes, a couple of your favorite songs. But when you go and do a 50K race in Thailand, or the one in Granada, or the 100 kilometer one in Italy recently, how do you go about planning such a race? Because I can imagine there's so many, well, terrain and journey, but dips of motivation, energy level. Also, I guess what's possible for the body. It doesn't. It seems how do you apply that sort of thinking and preparation to something to me and I guess many is it's very abstract.
Yeah, you kind of like my strategy has always been you keep yourself fit, like so you're kind of at 80-90% all year round. So you keep yourself in shape. So you're doing the basics. You're doing a decent amount of miles. I've always gone off like if you look at me versus a lot of other runners, kind of even marathon runners. I always do the absolute minimum I can for the maximum result. So that when you add specifics towards a race, then the results are exponential. And it's the same in recruitment. If your quality is high and you're making 100 calls a day, what about if you're making 200 calls a day? Yeah, your return is going to be bigger. So then you're kind of at 80-90% fitness, and then you kind of need 10 weeks of specific training towards. So like for the race in Italy, essentially it's 40K flat ish, and then 10K uphill, 10K downhill, 40K flat to the finish. So you know that you're going to need to be. My plan in that was to run 40K easy, hammer it on the uphill because that's my strength. Leave everybody behind. My weakness is going downhill, so I'd practice that, condition the quads. Then at that 60K point, when you've hit the bottom of that hill, you still want your quads to be able to handle a marathon essentially on the back end flat. So it's just all conditioned for me. It was just all conditioned in the quads, keeping it on track of my hill running, and then going from there, and then just everything then becomes specific. So your long run every weekend is uphill, downhill. You back yourself on the flat in a way, but your midweek interval session is it's just fast stuff. So it makes the race seem easy. And with ultra marathon running, it's the same as marathon running. Really, it's not too dissimilar. That you want that race pace to feel like you're in second gear.
You've already done it. You've already prepared for it.
Yeah, like you've prepared so much faster that yes, your biomechanics of running are not so too dissimilar to what the pace that you've been training, but you've got the endurance and you feel as if you're in second gear all the way. You're not quite you're still in the black. You're not going into the red for the entire thing. So
there's a quote I heard recently, which is quite parallel. You hear people say, oh, they'll turn up on the night, or they'll raise their performance, or oh, he only plays well on the weekend, like the football player. But I'm not sure if it's the Marines or somebody. They say you normally descend to the level of your training. you don't rise to the performance. I'd never really thought of it like that, but you've just kind of hit the nail on the head. No, you've already done the work.
And psychologically as well. That's the thing that I mentioned to you when we spoke recently. It's like you get to the start line and everybody is petrified. You can cut the tension with a knife. Like people are worried that they're going to fail. They're worried that they're going to drop out. They're worried that they're going to get injured. They're worried that they're not going to get the time. For me, you've done all the hard work, so that's the part I feel so excited. Like it's difficult to sleep the night before, and as long as it used to be difficult to sleep the night before. Now it's easy because you're completely confident in what you've done. So I'm just really excited to get going. Like that gun, you want that gun to feel as if you're released from a cage.
And have you worked on that? Have you done specific things psychologically, mentally to go, okay, this to get yourself in that place? Because I would imagine it's really natural. Well, natural to be nervous before any race, but natural times 10 on a 100-kilometer race.
Yeah, well, it's not really, mate. I think a lot of it comes from traveling, right? It's just perspective. So people will say, "Oh, how do you run for 7 hours? And is it not painful?" It's like not. It's not really painful unless there's something gone wrong. It's not really painful. It's just discomfort, and we're kind of so hardwired to for everything to be comfortable now. As I was telling you, anything I need, I can get delivered to my house, and don't really need to go out much. Like get in the car, etc. That could be my life if I wanted to. So you kind of doing something that doesn't need. There's not a lion chasing me. I don't need to run for food anymore. So there's that animalistic nature or instinct isn't there. So it's kind of why are you in hour 4 and your quads are killing and you're still going.
Why carry on?
Yeah, why carry on? But then it's like with perspective, like you're not living in Ukraine taking bombed. Your whole city's not been bombed, right? You're not you're not born in a country where you can't actually leave the country because your passport's useless. You've been born in Manchester, UK. You in some kind of a democracy. You free healthcare. Free education. You have to really want to mess it up, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. Obviously, it depends on who you were born to, etc. But you have to. There's a lot of stuff there that you have to really want to mess it up
Mm.
Yeah,
there's a platform at least to start from.
totally. Yeah.
And concentration wise, then because it's real deep focus before, but definitely drawing. Do you have any insight or any tips, or is anything you do to maintain those levels of concentration? Where do you take yourself?
Yeah. So for me, it's funny. Like when you're on the start line, like as I said, I'm buzzing, yeah, and then they'll kind of they'll say something like, right, you got a minute until the gun, and it's funny because it's an Oasis lyric, yeah. Everyone's just panicking, and my go-to is like is a Noel Gallagher line. It's like, how much do you want it? How much do you want it? Like right there and then, how much do you want it? And do you want it more than everybody else here? Because this is literally heart versus heart, lungs versus lungs. Like who's got the biggest heart here? And that's, you just have to kind of go into it like that. And people will talk about, I go into beast mode. It's like there's no mode. There's no off switch. Kind of like that's who you are. So as long as you're comfy with that and you get to know yourself, you kind of like you don't need to kind of refocusing. You're already in it.
You're already You're not. It's not sort of separationist. This is who I am. Yeah. And so is that the when you quote in the Oasis lyric, is that it's like a mantra now? It's like that's it's.
Yeah. I remember getting in this lift. I was doing like Seville Marathon. I needed to kind of get a decent time to get in the England team, and I was like, I was not really not in shape because I'd had a couple of niggles, and I was like, right, I've got to pull something out of the bag today. It's got to happen. So I was kind of psyching myself up. So I'm staring into this mirror. I'm in a lift on my own. I'm just staring into my own eyeballs like an insane nutter. And I'm just going man or mouse, man or mouse, man or mouse, man. But I'm so into it that the doors open. There's just a crowd of people waiting to get in the lift, and they just see this guy in a running kit staring into the mirror, like just talking to himself. Must be frightening, but yeah, for me, it was like,
Were you saying man or mouse out loud, or just in your head?
Oh man, I'm out loud like an.
Even
Yeah,
some people will talk about it. Do you remember that guy we saw that time? Do you remember that guy? Do you remember that runner? Or if anyone saw the race, they'll go, "That was the guy." What, man or mouse? I'm trying to think if I've got some mantras. I think I probably do. Maybe they're a non podcast topic though. Habit wise, then you mentioned about the morning ones. I think those very three simple replicable, hydration, energy, and core. Whether you're a runner or not, we could all dive into that. Do you have habits day to day or week to week generally that put you in the right place, that help you ready for race day?
Yeah, so you want to take like, it's funny because during COVID I really started to dig down on these, and you've probably got like 8 different areas. So there's like flexibility, strength and conditioning, exercise physiology, nutrition, stress, sleep. There's a few like that. So for me, sleep, like that's your superpower. So I guard my sleep. And I have 8 hours of sleep. It doesn't matter whether I go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night. I have eight hours sleep, and I get up late because I train in the heat. So it's a little bit unusual for any type of sports person. They usually get up early, but I like to get up and train in the heat. And then to do list. All my life I've written a to do list, so that takes the stress away. So on paper somewhere is written everything I need to do, and that's stuff to do with running, but also stuff to do with life. So so that's just all on paper, and everything gets cleared off that before the end of the day. So yeah,
Does that help with the mind when you are running as well? Because you've got more clarity, more simplicity.
yeah, exactly. Bringing just everything as simple as possible. Yeah.
And the to do list is more is a daily to do list, or is it you are you planning it over a week, a month, or both?
But yeah, so what do I want to achieve today? What do I want to achieve this week? What do I want to achieve this month? And what are the long term goals? So this year, what would I want to win? And like, yeah. But it's funny on taking all that out of your head. I remember I was an Oldham, I'm still an Oldham fan, right? But I used to go with my dad to Oldham games, and my dad would just give me some blinders. Like, you'd see somebody like I was a defender as a kid, and like you'd see some fullback make a ridiculous mistake, and then the goal would go in. My dad, and I'd be like, what was he thinking? And Dad would always say something like, he was probably thinking, did I order 1 bottle of milk or 2? In that moment. So it's something else, right?
Head somewhere else.
Yeah, but it's funny, but it's totally true. Like if you've got other stuff going on in your head, like if you're in a sport that pays you a lot of money, you can outsource everything, right? Whereas if you're in a sport that doesn't, but you're kind of living your dream, you've got to still take care of yourself. So yeah,
That's where the planning comes in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's even that, I think, since Corona as well, and also the digital age and what we're doing today, even you've got. I think a lot of people find it very hard to concentrate, don't they? So that 1 bottle of milk, 2 bottle of milk, it's always in there somewhere. It's people are always thinking about the next. We're on this call. I can imagine quite often people are like, oh, what's the next thing? Who else am I talking to? It's very hard just to dial in sometimes, that distraction. So to then go and say I'm going to go and do that for 7 hours on a specific task is ultimate planning for sure. Because obviously on the flip side of that simplicity, obviously it's running and running fast and running long. You've got to have there's a level of not concentration, but how do you tackle burnout? And when I say burnout, I don't mean like you're overly stressed or something. I mean the engagement and the enjoyment of doing the running. Obviously it's your passion, but if you do something too much, you can fade. So what do you supplement it with to keep that enjoyment?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question, mate. It's like it's very very difficult for me to not be all in. Yeah. So right now I'm noticing that because I'm trying to do other things at the same time. Yeah, and it's like I kid myself sometimes, and I say, okay, I'm going to get into this, and I'm going to give it 4 or 5 hours a day. I've got that. It's never going to be 4 or 5 hours a day. Everything has got to be at 110%. So
you just dive right into it.
And then it's like all of a sudden you're doing something for 12 hours a day as well as trying to train for big races and stuff like that. So ultimately you've only got so much you can do. And I've been burnt out once, and that was like back in Manchester, addicted to work. And of all the addictions that I've had, like an addiction to work is the most lethal. Yeah. Addiction to running is quite simple to deal with. It's equally as bad, but you'll very quickly get found out but it'll come in the form of an injury, and you're like, right, okay, I've strained the muscle or I've torn a ligament. You've always done it, and it's there. Whereas work, the problem with being burnt out of work is it often kind of comes just after major success, right? Because you've been working like crazy, you're running on that adrenaline, and then all of a sudden, bang, it hits you, and that takes a long time to recover from. So, yeah.
I was thinking the reason I got me thinking about it is the discipline you do, but I think we were talking before this, and we were talking about the live chat you did with Ronnie, and I got the impression from it as well, if I remember rightly, that someone such as him who's so disciplined in his area, snooker, the running provided a creative outlet, a different outlet. So then, when you did dive back into your passion, you dive back in with more energy. I think Sean White, the snowboarder, says it massively that the whole reason he was successful in snowboarding was because he was allowed to go and skateboard. So he became I think gold medalist in skateboarding as well. But he jumped into that for fun. So then his passion still gave him that release. Where I don't know if there's, like you say, if there's things that you find like that, I need to sometimes just dip into other things as well to keep it, or you pretty much know I love it. I'm always going to love it.
Yeah, I'm always going to love it, but there has to come a time when you're kind of like, okay, I've done enough, and it's a tricky thing because you really want to do something you love for forever. Yeah, like I really admire in a footballer. Yeah, I've got my kind of like three guys who are kind of like they're all time greats, but I really admire kind of a 20-year career, somebody who's been at the top for 20 years, like because that. Especially when it now comes with the money to kind of keep on driving for the win and keep on the discipline, training harder than ever in your last stages, even more than you did before, and having to do all the prehabilitation stuff
different ways as well, I guess as well. If I don't know, you think of some of the players that, like you said, these guys in their mid-30s and 40s bringing yoga into play and stuff like that.
That's fascinating for me. And I've got a friend who, just on that, like I've got a friend rode the Tour de France, I think 15 times, and then he sent me like I had crashed day two, so you get super fitter than ever. You're completely on the limit. Day two is a crash in the peloton. He goes down, breaks his femur. Fractures his femur and breaks his hip. And he sends me the first video of him taking his first step on the Zimmer frame, like a few weeks later. Yeah. And then within 4 months, he's riding the Vuelta a España. So kind of gone from July to September, and not only kind of can walk and is mobile, but riding at the top level again.
It's bizarre, right?
It's absolutely incredible, yeah. And I was like, how do you do that? And how do you switch your kind of, because the frustration that comes with being injured, you don't have access to the drug, the thing that makes you happier. And he says you basically become you were a professional cyclist, now you're a professional recoverer. And it's your job to be as fast as possible at getting back. Like not trying to cut corners, but as fast as possible at getting back on the bike. And
just taking it super serious, but as like, that's your discipline now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. So it's that's fascinating, but also like you mentioned about the snowboard, they can feed into each other. So it makes me really happy to be doing well at something else as well at running, and it's a different type of pleasure, but it's still it still hits something. It's still kind of like we could talk a lot about this, but like automation and like robots taking over and universal income and things like that. Great, sounds amazing if everybody's got X amount coming in every day and you could do absolutely what you want. But for me and you, that might be, okay, we pick up a guitar and we start to write songs. We're terrible, but we love it, right? So that's what we do because we've got all this time available. For other people, that might be addiction to whatever, right? And I think the lack of usefulness, purpose, that is something very, very dangerous.
People need something. Yeah, that from a purpose perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Is there any obviously for the people who will watch or listen to this? Is there any tips or biohacks or things you'd want to leave people with and say, look, this will help you day to day, whether it's motivation, mindset, planning, fitness, any key takeaways you'd give us?
Yeah, for me, I like. For me, the biggest one is you've got to exercise. If you want anything to be sustainable and optimal, you've got to exercise at some point. Doesn't matter what your thing is. It might be like hitting a tennis ball against a wall, yeah. But if you do that first thing in the morning instead of after work, when there's 1,000 things that could happen in your day that then doesn't happen. Yeah, you've got it done, and it's the first thing you took. So you get your heart moving, and you get your heart beating in the morning, and you tick off that. You get out ideally in sunlight, and you kind of like you're doing that for 30 minutes. That in the morning, and basically earn your breakfast. Like what you're going to get from that is fat burning. You're going to turn your body into like a fat burning machine, like optimize your fat burning and metabolism, and then you're going to give yourself like there's positive endorphins like that are going to help you throughout the rest of the day. It's just going to be easier to be around, work with, all those things, and you're going to be more productive. So that's the thing. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people will go to the gym after work or at lunch and stuff like that. I get it, and like breaks the day up, or you're looking forward to it afterwards. But first of all, it's going to be mega busy after work, and the amount of things that can go. Oh, we just got a meeting. Do you mind like jumping in on this? And all of a sudden, you get an earache off the person at home. Yeah. So yeah, just get it done first thing in the morning. Don't just be like non-negotiable with that 30 to 45 minute, whatever it might be, however long you can give yourself. Ideally an hour, but
Simple one, really simple one. Look, mate, it's been a pleasure. We could go on for ages, I'm sure. Actually, I've got more questions now. I thought of, but yeah, so I will definitely be texting you for sure. But thank you. This has been amazing. Where can people find you if they want to check you out on socials?
yeah, you can't find me anymore.
Fair
You can't
enough.
find me. Yeah,
Fair enough. It's
mate,
gone.
no, you can find me. Yeah, if you, I suppose, if you wanna find me enough, you will find me. Yeah, it's just like that.
There you go. There you go. The man of mystery. Good luck with everything to come, and a pleasure.
Good man. Thank you very much for your time, Andy. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.